food myths. Circle true or false. Then read and check your answers.
1. Many Japanese restaurants serve a kind of fish that can kill diners within hours if it is not prepared properly.
2. Eating chocolate has been linked to an increase in heart disease.
3. Fresh vegetables are healthier than frozen vegetables.
4. Apples, potatoes, and onions all taste the same when eaten while holding your nose.
5. Red dye produced from grinding up insects is used in many food items. 1. Blowfish, which are considered a delicacy in Japan, contain deadly toxins. If not properly prepared, eating blowfish can lead to death by poisoning. Victims usually die within 4 to 24 hours of consuming the fish. Blowfish diners count on specially licensed chefs to prepare the fish safely.
2. A number of studies have shown that chocolate consumption may reduce the risk of developing heart disease and cancer. Scientists believe that antioxidants reduce the chances of developing these diseases. Antioxidants are also thought to enhance blood flow and help maintain healthy cholesterol levels. Dark chocolate and cocoa powder are particularly rich sources of antioxidants. In fact, ounce for ounce, dark chocolate and cocoa have more antioxidants than antioxidant-rich foods like blueberries and green tea. Of course, it's not good to eat too much chocolate, but it's not a good idea to cut chocolate out altogether either.
3. Frozen vegetables are at least as nutritious as fresh vegetables and may sometimes actually be healthier. Fresh vegetables are at their nutritional peak at the moment they are picked. However, they often spend days or weeks in transit, in the produce aisle, and in your refrigerator. Over time, vegetables lose vitamins and minerals. However, frozen vegetables are picked and frozen at their peak. Freezing locks the vitamins and minerals in. When you do buy fresh vegetables, try to pick out ones that seem fresh and have been grown locally.
4. Up to 80% of taste comes not from our taste buds, but from our sense of smell. Taste buds allow us to identify bitter, salty, sweet, and sour flavors, but we depend on the smell of foods to give us most of our sense of flavor. So without smelling the aroma of a food, it is difficult to distinguish one flavor from another. Incidentally, this is why food loses its flavor when you have a stuffed-up nose.
5. Many food items with a deep red color, including fruit juices, candies, and gelatin, include a dye called cochineal, or carmine. This dye comes from the shells of the female cochineal insect, which is found in South and Central America. The dye has been used for centuries and dates back to the Aztecs.
Thank you so much for this wonderful meal. It must have taken all day to make such a phenomenal spread.
My pleasure. It was no hassle at all. I whipped it up in no time.
You are quite the cook. I don't think I've ever had such a gourmet meal.
I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Can I give you some more of the chicken?
Oh, no thanks. I'm absolutely stuffed.
Would you like to try the grilled asparagus?
No, really. I couldn't possibly eat more.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. Honestly, I couldn't eat another bite.
Oh, that's a shame. I made 2 different desserts. One is a chocolate raspberry layer cake, and the other is almond creme brulee.
Did you say chocolate raspberry cake? Come to think of it, it's rude to turn down food, right? I'm sure I could fit in a bit of that. And maybe I'll have a bite of creme brulee as well. I have a sweet tooth, you know.
One, chocolate comes from the cacao tree. 2, once they receive a shipment of beans, they get down to the business of processing the cocoa into chocolate. 3, one of the steps in the manufacturing process involves getting rid of the shells. 4, workers take out the cocoa beans and throw away the husks. 5, the chocolate cools down, is taken out of the mold, and becomes a chocolate bar.
Accidental food discoveries. Can you imagine a world without cool, creamy ice cream cones? Isn't it depressing to imagine life without chewy, delicious chocolate chip cookies? And who could get by without salty, addictive, crispy potato chips? Yet all these treats are fairly recent inventions that may never have come into existence if it weren't for lucky accidents. Have you ever enjoyed the cool refreshment of a popsicle on a hot summer day? If so, you have an 11-year-old boy named Frank Epperson to thank. One winter day in 1905, young Epperson was making soda pop by mixing powdered soda and water. He accidentally left the mixing bucket outside with the mixing stick in it overnight. That night, the temperature reached freezing. In the morning, Epperson discovered that the fruit-flavored liquid had frozen to the stick. Although he tried and liked his invention, it wasn't until 18 years later that it occurred to him to turn his invention into a business. Epperson's children referred to this treat made by their pop as a popsicle. That name stuck, and eventually became the official name. Today, popsicles are enjoyed by millions of people around the world. But perhaps your dessert of choice on a hot day is an ice cream cone. If so, you should be glad for the unexpected event that brought 2 men together at the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. An ice cream vendor named Charles Menches was doing such booming business that he ran out of bowls to put the ice cream in. The vendor next to Menches was a young Syrian immigrant named Ernest Hamwi. Hamwi was selling a Syrian treat called zalabia, a crisp, wafer-like pastry. Hamwi came up with a solution to Menches' quandary. Hamwi rolled some of his warm pastry into a cone so that Menches could put ice cream inside. In that instant, a favorite international hot weather treat was born. Of course, not everyone is a fan of frozen treats. Some prefer the indulgence of delicious freshly baked goods, like chocolate chip cookies. These people should be grateful for an accidental discovery made by an American housewife in 1930. One day, Ruth Wakefield was making chocolate cookies when she realized she had run out of baker's chocolate. Wakefield decided to substitute broken up pieces of a chocolate bar she had on hand. She assumed that the small pieces of chocolate would melt and mix into the batter. However, after taking the cookies out of the oven, Wakefield discovered that the chocolate hadn't melted. Instead, there were little chips of chocolate throughout the cookie. Much to Wakefield's delight, the chocolate chip cookie proved to be a great success with her family and guests. Wakefield sold the recipe to the chocolate company Nestle in exchange for a lifetime supply of chocolate chips. It wasn't long before the chocolate chip cookie became a world-famous treat. But if crunchy, salty treats like potato chips are your preference, then you owe a debt of gratitude to a cranky chef and a picky diner who lived over 150 years ago. On August 24th, 1853, George Crumb was working as a chef in a restaurant when he became frustrated with a customer. The customer had repeatedly sent back his French fries, complaining that they were too thick and soggy. Fed up, Crumb decided to teach him a lesson. Crumb sliced the potatoes as thinly as possible and fried them in grease. To Crumb's astonishment, the customer thought the chips were delectable. They became a regular item on the restaurant's menu and, in time, became a staple of the global fast food industry. Clearly, not all accidents are bad. Some have made our lives richer, sweeter, and tastier.
Too much seafood. A few years ago, we were at a famous seafood restaurant. A friend of ours went overboard and proceeded to order almost everything on the menu. Soon, immense amounts of seafood started arriving on large platters. We ended up with a feast that could have fed 20 starving people, not 6. It was all delicious, but there was too much of it. 3 of the group were determined to clear everything, so they continued gobbling down fish, seafood, salad, French fries, anything that was still on the table. 3 hours later, we split an exorbitant check among us and walked back to our hotel, feeling unpleasantly full. As expected, we all got sick. Our extravagant friend, who had eaten most of what he had ordered, was taken to the hospital. The rest of us were given strict orders to only consume liquids and stay in bed for the rest of our stay.
Pepper sauce and truffle. I was flying back home from France. I had been given a first-class seat because the plane was overbooked, and my seat had been given to someone else. I did not, of course, mind the change one bit. I had been traveling on a very tight student budget and had been trying to cut down on expenses, so I tended to skip meals quite often. After the plane took off, I realized that I was famished. Appetizing smells wafting my way from the galley did nothing to reduce my hunger. Fortunately, we were served very soon. I tasted the food and was truly amazed. It consisted of the most succulent, tastiest bone filet and pepper sauce that I had ever had. It was served with truffles and baked baby potatoes with herbs. The pepper sauce was delicious, as were the truffles. I decided that I rather liked flying first class.